What's going on, guys? Welcome into the Sports Map Houston post-game show for World Series Game 3. Well, that was ugly, at least if you are a Astros fan. That was actually a show of dominance if you're a Phillies fan. I guess it just depends on where you come out. Come on in. We've got a lot of people that come by the chat during each of these post-game shows. Josh, welcome in. Astros drop the game 3 of the series. They now are in a 2-1 deficit for this series. What were your thoughts on tonight's game?
Man, that was horrible. I mean, and guys, we're going to be a little negative tonight. I mean, they did lose 7-0. We have to be able to talk about the game. I still think they have a shot in the series. We remember, the Yankees series, they came back to Houston. They didn't have the lead. I believe in 2019 against the Red Sox, they went down 2-1 as well, and then won a couple in Boston. So it's not over, guys. It was one poor performance. But, I mean, we've got to start with, it's 2 things or 3 things. Lance McCullers was terrible. Dusty probably left him in for too long. Not probably, left him in too long. And you're not going to win any games if you don't score any runs. So, those are my big 3 takeaways.
Yeah, that's true. It's hard to be negative about the offense, even though there's plenty of critiques to be had on the offensive side of the ball. When you give up 7, you're putting them in a hole pretty early. It's also impossible to be mad at McCullers considering they didn't score 1 run. So it didn't matter whether he gave up 7 because one run was good enough to win tonight. So it was pretty ugly. We're going to get into it and kind of look at some of the realities of the situation here. But fortunately for us and fortunately for you guys, we are brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Josh, tell them where to go if they're looking for some World Series merch, Astros specifically.
Yeah, man. Their only place to go is Academy Sports and Outdoors, guys, because it's not just the great prices; it's the selection. They got your caps, they got your your tees like these types of tees. They have jerseys. I mean, everything you want. It's the officially licensed stuff that you get at Academy, guys. Like I said, great prices, and you can get it online. So if you want to check it out, just go to academy.com, see what they have in stock. There's always new stuff coming in daily, so you're always going to want to check that on your phone or your laptop, see what they have in the store, and then head over there. They have the best brands too, to be honest. Nike, New Era, 47 brand. I mean, they have all the good stuff. If you're going to go get it, might as well get the good stuff, get the officially licensed stuff. And they're an official sponsor of the Houston Astros. So how could it be any better, guys? And there's still a lot of baseball here left. So let's keep it going here for our Astros. They still got a good shot at this thing. Get over to Academy, check out all the Astros gear today.
Indeed. Thank you, Josh. So again, welcome into the Sports Map Houston World Series Game 2 post-game show for the Astros and Phillies. And on a day in which Kyle Tucker and Jeremy Pena are awarded gold gloves at their respective positions, we had a pitching matchup of Ranger Suarez versus Lance McCullers on the mound. And there's been a lot of dialogue about how one of the strengths of the Astros is pitching. But we have seen both Lance McCullers now, and before him, Justin Verlander get rocked for 12 runs in this series. So there's the reality of what we talked about before this started, which is anything you think you know about baseball, like whatever you think the matchup is, you can just throw it away because a series is a series. Each series is going to be different. And right now, it's hard to account for the Phillies and how hot they are, except for to say that they have a 2-1 lead and they control their own destiny. They have an opportunity to close out this series at home. They are 2 wins away from, winning the World Series on their home field. The Astros are 3 wins away of themselves of winning their second World Series in 6 years. So it's just one game. We have to remind ourselves that you can't get too high or too low after these things. Tonight, though, was a combination of lifeless bats and some really, really unfortunate pitching from Lance McCullers. Let's talk about Lance. what did you see from him? Because from my end, it looked like guys were sitting on his breaking stuff, and his breaking stuff was not breaking in a way that was just deceptive enough to miss.
Yeah, to me, it was the approach. You know, a lot of people point to the tipping of pitches that you could tell when his leg wasn't raising up to a certain level that a certain pitch was coming. And we did see Bryce Harper, you know, go make a note,
Yeah.
you know, and tell one of his teammates about that. And then that worked out. He hit a home run. But I think it was more the strategy, man. He's just, if you never throw fastballs, then they don't have to respect it. And it was the same problem we talked about that Verlander got into the other night. You have to throw inside a little bit. You know, McCullers isn't known as, you know, like a high velocity pitcher, but he could still get up to 95, 96 miles an hour. Just throw inside, and it doesn't have to be a strike. You saw that a lot, what they've been doing to Bregman and McCormick with those inside and up fastballs that are a little off the plate. And by the way, they're getting some of those called strikes that are off the plate. Right. None of that was happening for McCullers today. That's a story for another day, because we know that's not why they lost. But
no, it's not why it's not why they lost, but I think it definitely lended itself to Suarez being able to settle in, because Suarez was able to get a really wide strike zone call for him, and McCullers was not getting that conversely on their other end. That's not the reason why McCullers gave up 7 runs. That's not it. That had nothing to do with the umps, but I think it definitely put the offense behind the 8 ball on the other side of the bat, because I just think Suarez really didn't have, especially early, like
that second inning was when it mattered. There was 2 guys on base, and McCormick had 2 balls called strikes on him.
Right.
I mean, that is putting your thumb on the scale, if anything. You know, calling 2 ball strikes when there's 2 guys on base and 2 outs. I mean, that I tweeted about that one. I got quite a bit of response to it, because a lot of people agreed. But overall, though, Lance's approach, you got to throw more fastballs. You have to pitch in. It's the same thing with Verlander. Yeah. These guys are way too comfortable out there. I mean, they're swinging out of their shoes, just waiting, diving over the plate, looking for breaking stuff. They're not going to do that if you're hitting 96 right here from time to time. You have to do that to keep it balanced.
Yeah. Obviously, the reason why McCullers doesn't throw the fastball is because he doesn't feel comfortable in commanding it. He just never really knows. And instead of relying on that, he's trying to, throw get me over breaking pitches. And tonight it appeared that
get me over the fence breaking pitches.
Yeah. Yeah. It got way too much plate, and then got deposited way too far in the seats. So, it's like I said, it was a combination of bad things. It's so hard. It's so tough when you have this comprehensive of a loss. When you look at, really, you didn't have that many opportunities. It was, I believe, the 5th inning before the Astros. Yes, no, I'm sorry. The 6th, top of the 6th, was Pena's leadoff single, and that was the first base runner with less than 2 outs. So they didn't have their first base runner on base with less than 2 outs until the top of the 6th inning.
Till the game was over. It was 7-0. Yeah.
Right. Until it was 7-0 at that point. So do you think, again, we talked about the strike zone, especially in that second inning there, but what do you attribute this to? Do you attribute it to dominant pitching by the Phillies and Suarez having a great night? Or do you put some blame on guys like Yordan Alvarez, who's, sitting in like a 1 for 35 slump right now?
Yeah. I look, I don't want to take credit away from him. He pitched very well, and he did what you're supposed to do when you're getting that call to plate. Keep going there until they stop calling it. And that's what he did, which is smart. But just the approach of the Astros in the first inning, Altuve swings immediately, Pena's out immediately. Yordan sees a few pitches, but still ends up striking out. I mean, the inning was over in a snap. And then what does McCullers do? We talk about momentum. He walked Schwarber to start the game. And then what happened? Schwarber ends up coming around scoring on that Bryce Harper home run. Walking the first guy is such a bigger deal in the postseason. It really is, because if you make a mistake, it's 2-0, and that's what happened. It's just the approach to Bregman didn't do anything tonight. Yordan didn't do anything tonight. Outside of game 2 of the World Series, Altuve hasn't done anything with the bat in the entire postseason. I mean, I know against the Yankees, he had a couple bloops over the infield, but I mean, to me, that's kind of more luck than a great day at the plate. So, how are the Astros going to win a World Series if Bregman, Altuve, and Yordan don't do anything? And Kyle Tucker didn't get a hit today either.
Right.
He at least hit one to the warning track that, in the deepest part of the ballpark. I mean, most of what Altuve's doing is he can't barrel up the ball. I wonder if that extra day off was bad for him because he was starting to feel it a little more, and then they had to have a day off because of the rain. So, but hey, no excuses. Philly came out and hit. They didn't have a problem. Did you think McCullers was tipping pitches? It looked like it in those side-by-sides, but I don't know if it mattered because they were just sitting on breaking balls no matter what.
I don't know if it mattered because, I mean, I think there's a good bet that he's going to throw something breaking, but because he's not going to throw his fastball for strikes, and he's not even attempting. He doesn't want to. That's not the game plan. So they're countering that by sitting on breaking pitch. And in all honesty, the Phillies aren't known to be a great team to hit breaking stuff. So credit where credit's due. They're dialed in, and they're hunting breaking stuff from guys who throw predominantly they know what the scout report is against them. They know what kind of pitcher Lance McCullers is. So it probably didn't take much of a tip other than to say almost all these are going to be breaking pitches. And then, here's what to look for. I mean, Harper clearly knew what he was looking for. He seemed to have communicated, but I can't always.
Was it to Bohm that he told that to?
Yes, it was for Bohm. You can't always attribute. I'm so skeptical about stuff in baseball because you don't know what's gamesmanship and what's really them seeing something. So there's always the opportunity for somebody like Harper to say something make a big scene because they know everybody's looking, make a big scene like that and say, hey, and then say something. But it could be just trying to get in the head of McCullers to make him think we got something on you. I mean,
and it was a different pitch. It was a hanging breaking ball to Harper, where to Bohm it was like a running sinker into him, and that he ripped that one out. So I mean, it was a different pitch, but if the tell is the tell, then I guess it could still work.
Yeah, and I mean, the common thing was they were all breaking pitches that hung. I mean, that was one of the things Smoltz talked about was that his McCullers' pitches just didn't have the normal cut to them. They didn't, they were just flat. They were, you get that sideways tumbling action on your breaking stuff. It's just BP. That's what it looked like. It looked like BP against one of the hottest hitting teams in the playoffs. And here you are. But again, I think it's really important to keep in mind, this is just a game. It doesn't matter. This isn't soccer where 7 points matter. Next 9 innings, it resets, and that's worth one game. So if the Astros assignment is still the same, the assignment's still the same. When you came to Philly, you got to steal a win in Philly, get it back to Houston, and then you hope to win at home. Now, the problem is you don't feel as comfortable about giving the ball back to Justin Verlander now. You don't feel as comfortable going back to Houston because you don't really have a great track record of winning at home in the World Series. It's just something, for whatever reason, they just have not been able to execute. So as fans, you can't help but have that stuff creep in the back of your mind. But as players and as the people who, the guys who are participating in it, it's just a game. And you can fall behind in a series, and still come back and win it, especially baseball. You're going to have another off day on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And
if you get
back. And so that's what you hope. But it was going to be complicated with the rain delay, with the postponement of the game, because it helped realign Philly's rotation. But that's not what happened here. What happened tonight was Lance McCullers got rocked, and the Astros offense went down meekly. And so that is what it is. And it's too much of a cop out to blame it on, there being a rain delay, because the rain didn't cause Justin Verlander to give back a 5-run lead in game 1. And the rain didn't cause Lance McCullers to give up 7 runs on 7 hits, or 6 hits, excuse me.
No, but I think we see a common theme there where I thought they should have pulled Verlander a little sooner.
Yep.
I thought McCullers should have been out of there.
Yeah.
Like I think you at least look at maybe the 6th inning. Let me look at my notes here. Yeah, right there. Because remember, it looked like get him out of there, but then Lance kind of settled in, right? Yep. And he had a couple smooth innings. So you're thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe we can keep it close here. But it was the 5th inning. Segura hit a ground out, and then Marsh comes up and smokes a single, I believe. And that's where they needed to have a pitcher ready to go to face Schwarber. Like that, to me, that's where the game ended right there. It's the 5th inning. That's long enough to protect your bullpen. Like that's you at least have a shot there. But once it gets to 6-7-0, you got no shot.
Hard to argue with the logic, but the problem is that even at 4-0, if you don't score, you don't win. And the Astros did not have productive at-bats tonight. Like you mentioned it. It was bad. You had hits from Gurriel, Hensley, Maldonado, McCormick, and Pena, but nothing was ripped, and they were all scattered, and most of them came with 2 outs in the inning already. So they were really meaningless at ABs. They were really meaningless singles, and they left 8 on base. That's a recipe for losing. And you mentioned it at the start, which was, if you're not going to get anything out of the top of the order, if you're not going to get anything out of Altuve and Yordan, you're in for a long night. And it was a long night, a night that's fans and Lance McCullers specifically would like to forget about. But I want to remind you where you shouldn't forget about, and that is to where you can get your sweet Astros World Series gear. Go down to Academy, your local Academy, and check out all the new styles that are down there. They've got all your favorite brands, whether it's Nike or New Era and 47 brands. I mean, just hats, hoodies. We mentioned hoodies, T-shirts, all your World Series gear there. They got their Astros come back and clinch. They're going to have those World Series shirts and stuff there too. So go grab them when they're available. Or you can, look, it's raining outside. Maybe you don't want to go out. Academy.com. Check it out every day. New styles, literally every day, new styles, Academy. So thank you to Academy. Man, I don't even know where to go. You talked about, whether you pull. I want to give some credit. I want to give some credit to Stanek and Urquidy, who came in and accepted the assignment. I didn't love the fact that you were using Stanek in that moment, but I guess it was against. I don't know, man. It's just like, I know it's against Harper. You're just trying to stop the bleeding, but I just was like, man, this is where you bring Stanek in. It just seems so odd. Like you could have brought anybody. Like I thought, like, and my notes said, why aren't they going to like Garcia or Urquidy? They did go to Urquidy, but it was after Stanek got them out of the inning. What did you think of Dusty's use of the bullpen tonight?
I didn't think he did it enough. I think if you look at Stanek right there, they wanted to go with the traditional relief pitcher. Were there people? Was that in the middle of the inning when he grabbed McCullers?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I think that's probably why he didn't give Urquidy an opportunity with people on base, and he wasn't at the time. He wasn't warming up either. But I think the momentum of this game changes if it's only 4-0. You can come back from 4-0. Yeah. A bloop and a blast, and you cut the lead in half. And they jumped out to the lead, pretty early in the game. So I think by just letting it keep building, like it felt hopeless, and with all the stuff about the pitch tipping, that's all Twitter was talking about. If you're hearing that, get him out of the game, like try something out. And what happened when they got him out of the game? It worked.
Right.
They were getting it, but what were they doing that McCullers wasn't doing? They were throwing fastballs.
Right.
Stanek was throwing 98-mile-an-hour fastballs, and you bring Urquidy in. He's not even a guy that throws that hard, but he was working off the fastball with this changeup and his breaking stuff. That's the thing about Harper. He is a guy that hits breaking stuff better. Some of their guys are good at hitting it. Some of their guys can't handle the high velo very well. You notice when Verlander pitched to Bryce Harper, he was trying to get him out with fastballs up here because that typically works. And that's how Stanek got him out. So I think, and I get McCullers is a different type of pitcher, but I feel like it was a flawed strategy. You can't not throw any fastballs. You can't do it. Even just waste a pitch and throw a fastball just to change the eye level and make them see that you'll throw one every now and then. But it didn't work. We'll see. That's why I thought Javier was such a great matchup here, because that's what he does well is fastballs. He gets guys out with up in the zone fastballs. But I will say this, I'd rather have Javier going tomorrow. I had a feeling that just all that wave of, the first game in Philadelphia for the World Series after the rain delay, I felt like the momentum was going to be powerful. I thought it was going to be really tough to steal this game. Personally, I was kind of glad, waste the loss on McCullers. Because he wasn't very good against the Yankees. And I love McCullers, but he hasn't been pitching well all that recently since the regular season. Let's face it, that was a long time ago. Was it like a month ago? So, Javier's been better as of late, knock on wood. You're going to have to turn to him tomorrow. And if he can't get it done for you, you're looking at an elimination game with probably Verlander on the hill.
Yeah.
In Philly.
And I think the reality of it starting to set in, which is that the thing that you thought was a strength in your pitching, you can't really look at that as a strength right now, because the Phillies get back to Nola tomorrow. And does that strike fear in your heart? Well, he's one of their better pitchers. Maybe he's learned from his last. He doesn't plan on giving up another 5 runs, but at the same time, you don't feel super confident about going back to Verlander. You don't feel super confident, again, like we said, about going back home and playing if you can get there, because of just your history but you got to get there first. And the main call to action right now is that you got to steal one in Philly. You could start that process tomorrow. And I guarantee you, as crappy as everybody feels right now, if you steal the next 2 and then head back to Houston with 2 to win 1, you'll feel a lot better about it then, right? Again, it's all about perspective right now. You got slapped in the face pretty hard by the Phillies. The Phillies came out and gave you every bit of the punch that they were threatening to. You said it. It had this feel of just all the momentum with the World Series returning back to Philly. This was a big deal for them. They hadn't been there since 2009. The Astros are there, 4 times in the past 6 years. Comments from some of the visiting fans were, you guys play in a library. Just because, maybe the Houston fans just weren't as loud as they expected them to be. But it's neither here nor there. The fans can't play. No. And I wanted to go to there was a missed. I had some notes on here on a missed opportunity. Well, I can't find it, but
I could point out one. To me, it was Altuve when he had a chance with after
2
the walk.
on, right?
The 5th inning when Chaz walked, Maldi got that single, and then Altuve sees like 2 pitches and hits a weak ass pop up to the pitcher. I mean that was a huge. And I have my notes. Do better. I didn't think that was a great at bat where he was really, really grinding out right there. So. That was a big turning point for me. And in the 2nd inning that we talked about, where those 2 pitches got called on McCormick, cost Tim to have to kind of swing at pitches he maybe not want to swing at, and they get out of that inning without scoring any runs.
Yeah, well, I think he got called out on strikes, right? I don't have my notes in front, or my notes aren't as complete as they normally are. But yeah, I mean, look, the strike zone was horrific. Suarez just did not have to throw strikes. And like you said, that put, hitters like McCormick in a tough situation. But
yeah, they rung him up looking on that call, but he also had to chase a few pitches that were borderline pitches that he kind of fouled off just to keep his at bat alive.
yeah, and the strike wasn't a strike. I mean, they called,
2 of them weren't a strike in that same at bat. But it's one thing if you miss a pitch, but to actually ring somebody up looking on strike 3 and the ball is not in the K zone, I mean, that's what can you really do about that?
It's not much you can do, but not helping the situation. Altuve 0 for 4, Alvarez 0 for 4, Breggy 0 for 3, Tucker 0 for 4, Yuli 1 for 4, Hensley 1 for 4. We haven't even talked about Hensley.
Is that our first designated hit
in the World Series? Yes,
in the World Series.
The World Series. It's not the first of the postseason, I don't think. I think there's
I know Mancini's 0 for 17 now, so it wasn't from him.
No. The only thing I remember,
I don't know if Diaz got a hit.
The only thing I remember out of Mancini out of the DH spot was that sac fly. That's the only thing I remember from Mancini. But yeah, the production out of the DH spot has been another one of those really dark spots for the Astros. But I mean, Maldonado gets a hit, McCormick gets a hit, Hensley gets a hit. The bottom of your lineup got on base. The bottom of your lineup got on base. The top of your lineup did not. Pena got, like we talked about, Pena got that hit.
And he ripped his. That's maybe the hardest ball they hit tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that was after Brogdon was in. Suarez is out. Brogdon's in. You're working with a 7-0 lead. So, of course, somebody's going to get a hold of one because you're going to start just targeting, you fill up the strike zone because what do you care? You're just in a chase for outs. You've got 3 innings to work with, and you're just trying to, in 7-run lead. Yeah, fill up the strike zone. You're just trying to get outs at that point. So, it's hard even, but again, he hits it, and then it's just stranded there. Jordan pops out, Bregman pops out, Tucker strikes out swinging. It just it didn't even matter.
It felt like that a little bit, and that's where I'm a little more critical of Dusty. Is just you have the best ERA bullpen, and you're not even using these guys. Yeah, I get it, but not every game's going to be like Fromber, where you're going deep, and we saw what happened today. They pulled their starter out early, and he was dealing. So the playoffs are just a different animal. I'd like to see a little more urgency from Dusty Baker.
I think that's Trevor's point too. I think you and him are simpatico on that.
Yep, I'm with you there, Trevor.
Yeah,
it felt like just a game in July or something. That. That was odd to me. It's baseball. That stuff happens.
Yeah, no, it is. That's definitely baseball. And to that point, Nola and Wheeler, have given up 10 runs.
Yeah.
And Verlander and McCullers have given up 12. So the thing that's, if we're being honest, it's one of the things I talked about before this series started. And one of the, I don't know that the Astros can survive slugfests. Jordan's struggles or inconsistencies isn't something that just arrived after game 2 of the ALDS. This is something he's been struggling with for, about what seems like half the season, which was, we thought there was questions around his hands and whether, he could hit or not. Did he have the hamate bone issue in one or both hands? They were real coy about that information. And then, he just starts kind of putting it together. He's starting to relearn how to lift the ball. It just was a really odd sequence from a guy who, for most of his career, just has never seemed off. And all of a sudden, the opposing teams just found a big hole in his swing, and they have exploited it with high fastballs ever since.
They have. And it's a tough pill to swallow with that, but that's kind of who Jordan is, right? Like, we think back to, what was it, like 19, how bad he was in the ALCS, but then he was actually decent in the World Series. And then we look, at seasons like last year, wasn't he was
21 flipped. Yeah. 21
yeah.
flipped as he's red hot in the ALCS, like carries them into the World Series.
And slumps through the World Series last year against the Braves. So like we've seen this before from Jordan from series to series. They just got to get his bat woken up. And Altuve, man, like I said, outside of game 2, like he has done nothing hitting wise. I mean, it's not Altuve. When you're every top of the lineup, you're starting with an out, and you're only getting to see 1 or 2 pitches from, when Altuve gets an at bat. So when you're on deck, that doesn't really help you very much. And then that pitcher is just like, great, I just had to throw a pitch and I'm already done with Altuve. And then he throws 2 more pitches or what have you, and then Pena's out. And then you got Jordan, you strike him out, and then you're feeling great. The crowd's going crazy. The ump's starting to give you some calls, and you're cruising.
The frustrating thing about watching this from the Astros perspective is that you feel like you are a Jordan hot streak away from just closing this thing out.
Yeah.
Like at any time, Jordan is just this, you're just a pocket nuke that at any given time could just explode and then the series is over with. But on the other hand, you are just as close to him being cold for 3 more games and being eliminated meekly. It's the feast or famine nature of what Jordan gives you in the postseason, and things just change. We've seen Justin Verlander have a Cy Young bounce back year, and in the playoffs, he's just been rocked. And here we are, one of the most dominant hitters in the game, especially left-handed hitters, one of the most dominant left-handed hitters in the game. Comes out of, he's literally the reason you win those first 2 games of the ALDS, brings you back from a 2-run deficit in the bottom of the inning.
Yeah.
With a walk-off. But since then, really MIA, and it's alarming. And
they're not really pitching around him.
No.
These teams just feel like they have a plan. They're executing it. It's working. Thank God he has Bregman behind him. I know Bregman didn't have a big day today. He did have a great at bat working a walk late in the game. Just, really good job. He just barely missed a couple fastballs today.
He can't do it every night.
He can't do it every night. It's baseball. Yeah.
I mean, he's done plenty. If the Astros can't close this series out, it will not be because of Alex Bregman's production. It'll be in spite of Alex Bregman's production, because he's been everything that you needed from him last year.
Yeah.
If you got this from him last year might have been a different story. But again, you got to perform in the World Series, and with the top of your order having, your top 3 hitters, the top of your lineup having 1 hit combined, that's not going to get it done. It's just not.
No, I mean, it's certainly not. The one positive thing that we did hear about today was, that Jeremy Pena won the Gold Glove, first rookie to ever do it. Kyle Tucker won the Gold Glove, guys. And the World Series is here. Academy Sports and Outdoors has everything you need. Hey, maybe you want to go get a Pena jersey now with him winning the Gold Glove. That's a big achievement. Doing that after Carlos Correa leaves, how awesome is that? Kyle Tucker, we know what kind of great player he is. 2 homers in the first game, the World Series, wins a Gold Glove. He's made some amazing plays. Go get yourself a Kyle Tucker jersey. And the best place to get them at is Academy, guys, because they have all the prices that you love, and they have all the best brands. They have t-shirts, jerseys, caps. Everything you're looking for is at Academy Sports and Outdoors right now. They have the officially licensed stuff. They got the good stuff. That's why you want to go to Academy. They're all over the area. You can go to academy.com. Whatever you need, guys, get over to Academy Sports and Outdoors. New styles arriving daily.
I think what's well, let me ask you, what do you think this series on its current trajectory will be defined by?
Whew. You're the guys you count on the most, not putting up the performances that you need when you need it the most.
And what do you attribute that to? How did we get this far with this team and for all of the major bats to go except for Bregman again? Like how did we get here where you're not getting anything out of Jordan or Altuve and Tucker in many cases outside of game one?
God, Brand, if I wish I knew. With Altuve, he didn't. They benched him that last game to keep him at 300, and then he's kind of been playing through a funk the whole postseason. He hasn't made the adjustments he needs. Jordan, I don't know. But he is a guy that's just him. He goes hot and cold. That's just who he is. I think that's part of it. The pitching is where, McCullers and Verlander coming off of injuries somewhat, McCullers, he start about 8 or 9 games, something like that, coming back from injury. Remember when he missed a start due to illness,
Yep.
Close to the postseason at the end of the regular season. Verlander coming back from that ankle, trying to lock down that Cy Young. So I could see with them, maybe it's just wearing down, kind of, pitching through some injuries. They're working through the bats. We could attribute it. You're going to see better pitching in the playoffs, right? I mean, that's part of it. These are the best pitchers. When they do bring a reliever in, he's throwing 100 miles an hour with wicked breaking stuff. So that's part of it. But this is starting to become a theme, with the Astros in in World Series, where we talk about the Washington World Series, where you can't win a game at Minute Maid. And then, last year with the Braves, that wasn't even a very close series. So it's just the randomness it drives you crazy, because you wish you could put your finger on it, say it's this, and then they'll be able to fix it. But when it's Altuve, Bregman, Jordan, and Tucker not giving you a hit tonight, you're probably not going to win that baseball game. At least if one of those guys was hot, you'd have a chance. But with all of them not hitting right now, it's really tough to overcome.
Runners left.
Can you put a finger on it? Do you have any thoughts?
I think it's just a culmination of things. I think the signs for this was all there. I don't think they especially played that well in the Yankee series. They played well enough to win. I think the Yankees, I think the Yankees and Astros both benefit from beating up on the little brothers and the AL a lot. And I just think that, the Phillies, it's, their 80 wins look a little differently in context of, having a couple of 100-win teams in their division, or at least 100-win team in their division. And so it's just different. It's different. I think it's nothing to take away from the Astros. I think for them to take down Seattle in the first series, super impressive considering how hot Seattle was. But we also know matchups make fights. And for some reason, Seattle just has that thing, that block where they can't overcome the Astros. And the Yankees are in the same boat. And it's just familiarity. And the Astros do enough to get past them. And they get to the World Series, and the stakes are a little higher because the Phillies are able to put more runs on the board, and that puts more pressure on the Astros bats. And the real question is, now, can the Astros keep up with it? But none of this matters if if Javier comes out tomorrow and spins a gem, and any number of one of these guys who are very capable of goes off and puts up a 5 spot on the starting pitching again, which we've seen a couple times in this series already. So you're protecting a 5-run lead away from being up 2-1 in this series. Yeah. So it's very important to keep perspective, because the game's not over, and 7-0 means nothing. 7-0, 10-0, 20-0 is all worth one game. That's it. And so the tally resets tomorrow. You go out and you play your best game again. And if the bats get hot and you tie it up, then you've literally done the thing that you set out to do, which was go steal one there and bring it back. And that's it. Like that's the mentality, is you have to you manage it game by game, and you don't take it for granted that you just lose the other one. You try to steal that one too. But if the Astros do steal both of those games and then bring the series back to Houston, it's a completely different vibe. And they are completely capable of doing that.
Yes. And I don't think you would have been shocked if I would have told you, oh, the Phillies are going to take that first game at home in Philly. They're winning all these games in Philadelphia. So, that's their MO, is they win at home. So I don't think neither one of us would have been shocked, like, oh, Philly's going to take their first game at home. They play well there. So I can live with that, but you gotta match it. You got to come back and take this next one tomorrow.
John, I'm gonna disagree with you here. I don't think it's a lack of leadership. And here's why I say that. It's a couple of reasons. One is, by all accounts, James Click's on the hot seat. And here's a guy who patched a really big hole in what the Astros were as a postseason team, which was their bullpen. The Astros historically had bad bullpens in the postseason, and James Click turned that around, and he fixed that. He made a weakness a strength for this team. They're not losing right now, and especially in this series, they're not behind in this series because of their bullpen right now. They're behind because your horses put you behind, because your horses let you down. And so that's a completely different scenario. Like, we're talking about a guy who, even if the Astros win the World Series, James Click may not hold his job because he didn't get accomplished what Jim Crane wanted. At least that's what the belief is, that he just wants to go a different direction. Like, okay, thank you for your time served. We're going to go a different direction. We did a Sports Map video about this earlier with John Lance that's going to publish. But yeah, I mean, it's just different. The expectations are different. I don't think it's a lack of leadership. They let Correa walk. Correa was on this team last year and lost.
The leadership thing, I kind of agree with it, but in a different way. And here's why. Also, I mentioned this in the video the other day too, when Verlander was starting to get rocked and things weren't going right. Like today with McCullers, when he was getting rocked, things weren't going right. All the media, they're taking screenshots saying he's tipping his pitches. Look at this, look at that. Where are the mound visits from these best pitching coaches in the world that we have when Verlander's gotten in trouble? And maybe you just need to go out there for a second and, give him a breath and then just say, like, all right, remember the game plan for this guy is this, this, and this. Go get him. Today with McCullers, they just leave him out there to get rocked. Absolutely no coaching, just slowing the game down. Hey, this isn't working for you. Maybe try this. That's leadership, the Brent Strom stuff.
Yeah.
We've seen the Astros pitching coaches do that, the law firm, all season long. But now that we're in these high leverage games, they're sitting on their hands. What is going on? Thank you, Mary. Where is the coaching?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And it's one of those things that we did think, what would happen? What's the ramifications of Brett Strom not being here? Well, we may be seeing them, is that there's I don't know, maybe that they're just trusting their pitchers to get out of it, but there's just so much usefulness in going out there and giving your pitcher a spell and just letting him catch his breath, especially again when he's fighting himself and when he's heavy into the pitch count in an inning.
And that's Correa stuff too, right? Where he used to be going up to the mound and, talking to Fromber, talking to, he would have been over there talking to Lance, like after one of those big home runs. Correa would have, I know he would have done that. He just felt that. But Pena's, new to the team. He's a rookie. He's not going to feel like he can go talk to Verlander or go talk to Lance McCullers when they're in a jam, because those guys are veterans. He's not going to feel in the right place doing that. Whereas Correa, he feels on the same level as those guys because he's been through the battles with them. Yeah. So I think there is something to that.
I mean, but again, Correa was here last year.
Yeah.
They didn't win. And that the year that Correa did that was against the Rays, they lost that series. So leadership, it's got to be a combination. Leadership can only get you so far. I don't think leadership is the reason why Jordan's in a 1-for-35 slump right now.
No, but you can try and minimize the damage when a pitcher's fighting himself right there. And I think he did do a good job of that with Fromber. Yeah, and I see a comment here. I'm surprised Maldi didn't go talk to Lance. Like, it's just strange. Like, the communication is just seemed to not be with them right now. I wonder if that's something they'll look to make an adjustment with, because now's the time. Like, every pitch matters. If you think you can make a difference, give a guy an extra breath, remind him of an approach, or be like, Lance, you're throwing nothing but breaking balls. I'm Maldonado, and I would have a great game plan against you because I'm just going to ignore your fastball. And you have to throw strikes. So that means you're going to throw me a hanging breaking ball because you're not going to want to walk me. So I'm just going to sit on that. You got to have a better approach, man. I think Javier pitches differently. So we don't have to worry about that being the approach tomorrow, but a lot of pressure on him,
it's, Javier has his own weaknesses to his game because traditionally he's not somebody who pitches the most efficient. He's effectively wild a lot of times.
Yep.
And so, you have to see what Javier you get tomorrow. Like, you're counting a lot on him, but like, you were counting on Verlander to hold on to a 5-run lead. You were counting on Lance McCullers to not give up 7 runs on 5 hits.
How is somebody not throwing in the bullpen after you have seen what they've done to him all game? And yeah, he had a couple decent innings after they rocked his ass, but then they did it again. Like, you have to have somebody available in a circumstance like this. Like, that's what infuriated me.
Yeah.
You can't not make a move because you're like, oh, I didn't have anybody warming up. Why? It's your job to have somebody warming up.
The Astros did not make a move to the bullpen early, but you can make a move to Academy and get your World Series gear. The World Series is here. And if you want all the latest caps, hoodies, sweatshirts, for anything that you need that's Astros gear, swing by your local Academy stores right now. Find all the officially licensed stuff at the prices you'll love. Shop online, academy.com. Even more gear there for the entire family. Step up to the plate, make your play for game-changing gear today. Shop Nike, New Era, 47 brand, and more. Academy Sports and Outdoors, new styles arriving daily. Go get you some of that sweet gear. I saw a comment here that I wanted to address. It just said, basically, how do the Astros get back up? And I think it's just real easy, which is, I think if Javier, it's very realistic to think Javier can be a tourniquet for the bleeding and can steal one for you. You are in, the mission is real simple. It's to steal one game. It's to steal one of these next 2 games in Philly, bring it back to Houston, and then it's back in your favor again. Like, look, there's no guarantees. The series was stacked in your favor to begin with, and it's gone by the wayside. You find yourself down in a 2-1 hole, but it's just a 1-game hole. And as we talked about over and over again, 7 runs doesn't mean anything because 1-0 is a win. And if the Astros are able to scratch that together in game 4 tomorrow night, then you're back even in the series. Gives you a different feeling, because then even going down 3-2, coming back to Houston, we've seen the Astros do that. We saw the Astros in the ALCS in 2017 go down 3-2 in New York. They come back, close out the series in Houston 2 games in a row. So it's very, very it's easy to imagine that happening. It's just they're going to need some production out of the top 3 in their lineup. Jordan's got to snap out of it. Altuve's got to get that bat hot again, and they have an opportunity tomorrow night. Again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I did find Stanek's use in that position curious. I don't understand the. Clearly we know what the game plan has been, just kind of observing, which is try to get as much out of their starters possible, even if they pop a leak in an inning, let them keep going, try to get 5 or 6 out of them, and then bridge to Neris or Montero and get to Presley. That's the plan. With very little exception, that's been the plan. And Abreu.
Yeah.
And try to
pecking order. Yeah.
Right. So my question is this: is we saw Dusty give a lot of leash to both Verlander and to McCullers tonight.
Yep.
When Lance is back, when JV comes back and he's back around in the order for Game 5, do we see Dusty give him as much leash, or do we see Dusty a little bit tighter with the leash and manage with more urgency?
I think we could see it as soon as tomorrow night. That's where I thought your question was actually going, was that, Javier is not a veteran like Justin Verlander or Lance McCullers. And, are they going to have a super quick hook for him if it's not going well tomorrow? And with Verlander, yeah, they have to. I mean, Dusty, he does see stuff. Like, him starting Hensley tells me he is open to trying some things, starting Hensley at DH, and he actually got a hit. He went 1 for 3.
Right.
So, you'll take that. Like, I mean, compared to what you've been getting, the big goose egg. So Dusty's not afraid to try some things. No. But, and momentum is all about, it's your confidence in tomorrow's starting pitcher. That's what momentum's really about in baseball. And I do have a lot of confidence in Javier, but we know even when he's really great, it's 5 or 6 innings and he's at his pitch limit, just because he's a guy like McCullers that he throws a lot of pitches. He goes to a lot of 3-2 counts.
Yep.
So, and they better be quick with the hook with either one of those guys. Like, you can't screw around here. You got to keep it close. That's what the Phillies did so great, is when they got that, they got down 5-0, they put in their best pitchers to keep the game close, and they were rewarded by coming back and winning that game. So tonight, Dusty didn't do that. He didn't give his team a chance. He let McCullers leave McCullers out there just twisting in the wind like that when he clearly doesn't have it. I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah, we've seen McCullers not have it though. I mean, we talk about him being a big game pitcher, and he certainly can be. We've also seen him scuffle in the playoffs as well. We've seen him scuffle in the World Series before. And this just wasn't, I mean, this was probably the worst. I can't think of a worse performance for him than this. I guess the good thing is it can only go up from here, you'd hope. But yeah, like you said, you would assume the leash is going to be longer, but here's where that concerns me not shorter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you assume the leash is going to be shorter, but here's where that concerns me. My concern with the short leash is how dogmatic Dusty is being to his pecking order right now, which means he's going to ask more out of Abreu or more out of Montero or more out of Neris before he asks anything out of Stanek. And so that means, he's going to use like Luis Garcia before he brings in Stanek. What I'm afraid of is that Dusty's going to show them, if the leash is too short, Dusty shows them too much of the bullpen, and the bullpen gets overtaxed, and then the thing that was a strength is no longer a strength. And now you don't really have anything to fall back on except for all these guys who haven't really pitched. Like I said, that's why I really put a lot of credit to Stanek and to Urquidy tonight, because the assignment was to limit the damage without having to go to the bullpen. They did exactly like that. So now you've got 2 games in a row now in which your bullpen is completely rested, and that is thanks in large part to Jose Urquidy being able to put up zeros on the board.
It is. I guess that's what frustrated, because Hunter Brown was up warming up after McCullers was in trouble, and then they sat him back down. And then by the time McCullers was in trouble again, it was too late. Game was over. You didn't have anybody ready to put in there, and it didn't matter. I see your point, but God, Brandon, they should be rested. They're not getting used at all. No. And if they manage to win at least one of these games, then they're going to have the off day on Friday. Yeah. So
But I think that's the mindset, though, and I don't know if it's the right one, but I think it's the mindset, which is, I think with you already being in a multi-run hole in Philly, I think the thought was let's try to when Lance got in trouble, it's like you put them that far down that early. You're just like, just eat whatever innings you can. Let me get to a long reliever and let's save the bullpen because you got 3 games in a row. So I think now you got two games in which you have the entire arsenal that's available to shoot at it. And so hopefully that's where, if you do need to have a short leash with Javier tomorrow, which is, that wouldn't be a surprise if Javier has to be pulled early. Like, he can be super effective and also be super inefficient, but he can still be effective. So that all that means is you're going to have to lift him earlier. Now you have all your bullets to fire. So again, there's a scenario in which the Astros take the next 2 and head back to Houston with 2 chances to win 1. And this game will not have mattered. It will not have mattered in the big picture. It just matters right now because it puts you in the 2-1 hole. And there's some very dire implications from it, which is that Jordan's still not breaking out of it. And outside of game 1, Tucker's still not really giving you a whole lot. And the top 3 in your lineup were 1 for 11.
Yeah.
So that's not going to get it done.
No, I mentioned this in the last post-game show. I want Dusty and the team to be a little more proactive and less reactive. Like, you've seen that McCullers doesn't have it. And yeah, he managed to get through a few batters and do a good job by changing things up. By the way, he started throwing some cutters, which he's pretty much ditched the cutter. He started throwing some pitches he hasn't been throwing that much anymore just to get him off the scent. Clearly, they had a plan to go hunt breaking balls. That's why it made sense to me to put Hunter Brown in there when the game was still 4 or 5-0, because what does he do? He throws 98 miles an hour. Yeah. He's the opposite of what McCullers does. He lives off that fastball. Now, I know he has that 93, 94 mile an hour slider, but you get my point. You saw how effective Stanek was using his fastball. Sometimes you just have to be like, man, Lance doesn't have it today, and they have a great game plan. Let's get him out of here while the game is still 4 or 5-0. We got a shot.
Yeah.
That was the approach that the Astros didn't realize, like, they've got something on him today. Yeah. It's working. Let's get him out, because they didn't game plan for Hunter Brown right now.
Right.
Let's somebody throws high velo. Let's get them in there. Somebody that's the opposite of Lance. And
that's a tough ask, though, because now you're asking a rook to come in there
4 or 5-0 already.
Yeah.
As opposed to leaving McCullers in there,
right?
I'll roll the dice on that.
Yeah, I mean, but
that's who he had warming. That's why I mentioned it, and the high velo makes sense for what they were having success with.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's not that the Phillies can't hit fastballs. That's what they're really good at. So,
well, I mean, that Harper, there's some of their guys that really struggle with the high velo. So, perhaps it's matchup specific. Yeah. Stanek, I would have preferred there, Brandon. If you really feel like the game is on the line, we can't let up any more runs, and you bring in Stanek when it's 4 or 5-0, and then you go inning by inning after that. I think that's how he should have played it. It's easy to say after the fact, but this is stuff every Astros fan was yelling at their television, like, McCullers doesn't have it, get him out. The one thing you talked about as far as using the bullpen too much, just quickly, I wanted to get to, man, you're just hoping to get an inning out of each of one of those guys. I don't feel like that's too much of a big ask, just give me an inning, Stanek. Give me an inning, maybe Hunter Brown. Give me an inning, Abreu. I'm talking about for tomorrow if they need that from Javier. I'm not saying make those guys do what they're not used to doing by going 2 or 3 innings. Just ask them to give you an inning, and I think that's the best way to manage it.
Yeah, I think. And again, if they're able to get that, and again, it doesn't matter. Like, if they're able to get it tomorrow, if they're able to get it Thursday, it doesn't, ideally it's tomorrow, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you have to win 3 in a row.
Like, you got elimination Verlander.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's a little worrisome, man.
Yeah.
I fire the bullets tomorrow.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, man, you're trying to do more than just steal one. You want to steal both of them. You want to be able to take both of these games and take it back to Houston for, 2 to win 1. Again, that's not always worked out for them. It didn't work out for them in 2019. They had 2 opportunities to win 1 coming back to Houston and couldn't win a single game at home. But it's the game that you're playing right now. You drop game 1, you give back that 5-run lead and below game 1, and now you're here where you're like it's expected that you're going to go into Philly and struggle in that game, because Philly is going to be a rowdy crowd. And boy, did I have to hear about it. The crowd was almost like a character that they were narrating about the entire. I've had to hear more about this crowd, and to their credit, Philly shows up and rewards them, gives them a great game. I mean, they set the tone early with Castellanos going out there and making that great play on Altuve ball again. And that's a guy who's been a defensive liability for them. He was literally rated as the worst defender in baseball, and just says, yeah, well, about that, I just don't pay attention during the game. And so now that we're in the playoffs, I'm just paying attention to every bat. Okay, well, then I guess this is just what's going to happen. Then, again, the things that you think, the narratives that you think are going to be the case, or the strengths that that on paper, that's not how it works out in a series. And baseball is just so unique because of the ebb and flow between game to game to game. The narrative changes completely. And after game 1, everyone in Houston felt dire. After game 2, everyone in Houston had the utmost confidence. And after this, the Astros look bad, and it looks bleak again because you give up 7 runs. And on the other side, you don't scratch across any runs. It's a tough showing, man. It's really tough
against their worst starter.
Yes. And again, with the rain delay giving them an extra day to be able to reset, to be able to get to NOLA quicker.
Yeah.
You're in a position where, things are matched up much more evenly, but it doesn't matter. Again, if let's look at the top 5 in the lineup. I mean, they had 1 hit between them, Altuve, Pena, Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker.
It was Pena.
Yeah, it was Pena. 1 hit. Yeah. And I mean, no one had more than 1 hit tonight. No. Pena had a hit. Gurriel has the hit. Hensley has the hit.
Maldi.
McCormick and Maldi. Yeah. So you had 5 guys have a single hits. And again, we talked about it. Every guy that was in scoring position was there with 2 outs. You didn't get a guy on base with no outs until the top of the 6th. And that was after the game was well out of hand.
Yeah.
And so, it's just a really, really unfortunate. It was a really unfortunate showing tonight. But again, man, it just counts for 1. And the Astros have an opportunity tomorrow night to right the ship. And you have the opportunity to go down and pick up some World Series merch as they do that. And if you don't have any World Series merch, if you don't have any Astros merch, you have an opportunity to right the ship, because you can go down to Academy and rep the Stros on the big stage. You swing by your local store, find all the officially licensed tees, jerseys, caps, and all the prices you'll love. Shop online at academy.com for even more gear for the entire family. Step up to the plate, make your play for game-changing gear today. Shop Nike New Era 47 brand and more at Academy Sports and Outdoors. New styles arriving daily.
Well, there you have it. Hopefully tomorrow we're celebrating a win and not breaking down an ugly loss. I mean, there's, like I said, I had 3 big takeaways. I wish Dusty would have gone to the pen a little sooner. The offense, you're not going to win anything if, like you said, the top 5 guys in the lineup are only going to combine for 1 hit. So, the umpires killed us a little bit too, but that was early. That didn't really matter. I mean, it just really came down to the bats and the pitching. The starting pitching didn't get it done.
I mean, Kyle Schwarber's shown up for this series.
Yep.
Bryce Harper's shown up for this series. Real Muto has showed up for this series. Jordan's MIA.
Yeah.
Altuve's had, sporadic hits. He was hitting 400 prior to tonight. But, Tucker outside of game one hasn't really done anything for you. Maldy's been Mr. Consistent. He's been on base for you. It just seems like
plenty
for you. Yeah. And again, you're getting enough. Like, look at what McCormick's giving you this postseason, way more than you could have planned for. Look at what Maldy's giving you this postseason, way more than you could have planned for. It's the DH spot that's really given you nothing to this point.
Yep.
Tucker has really struggled to string together and be hits and be consistent. Altuve's been mostly a nothing throughout the playoffs. He woke up last couple of games. Alvarez is just MIA. It's tough. Like, it's tough to get nothing from the top of your order, and to get nothing from Jordan, to get nothing from your DH spot. That's a tough recipe to win with. They've been able to do it. They were actually able to sweep in 2 series. So that's what you're talking about, is they were good enough to overcome those deficiencies up to this point. Philly's just a different beast. They're on a different level. They are white hot. And so to take them down, you're going to have to rise to the occasion, because they're not going to beat themselves. Like, they've already shown you they're not going to beat themselves. The Yankees were going to beat themselves. They just were, and they gave you every opportunity. It's actually been the Astros that have done a lot to beat themselves here. But I don't want to take any credit away from Philly. Philly's done what they've needed to do, and the Astros to this point have struggled to do that. We're going to talk about it again tomorrow night, hopefully following a win. And again, we will feel very, very differently if this series is tied 2-2 after game 4.
We will.
But we'll have to see how that goes. I want to give a shout out to everybody who participated in the show this evening.
Please hit like on the video, guys. It makes a huge difference for us.
Yeah, absolutely. MP, BC Crypto, Goyo, Joseph, Hung Nguyen, Bad Billy, Joseph, everybody that's in the chat. We really appreciate your participation. Make sure you tune in tomorrow night. Hit like on the video, subscribe. And again, guys, thank you so much for coming and participating in the show. Go Astros.